Hello and welcome. My name is Benjamin Rogers and my pronouns are he, they, and I'm the Director of Music Ministries at University Congregational United Church of Christ.
Woo! Woo! My name is Stephen O'Bent. I use he, him pronouns, and I am the Minister of Music here at the First Congregational Church of Bellevue.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are gathering as guests of the Duwamish people on their traditional land that touches the shared waters of other Coast Salish tribes. Their identity and richness of culture are deeply connected with the mountains, the valleys, the waterways, and the shorelines that surround us all. Our two choirs performing here tonight have a rich history of musical collaboration, including the Foray Requiem in 2017 and the Street Requiem in 2019. Yeah. In choosing the choral suite from Considering Matthew Shepard, we acknowledge that the world still isn't a safe place for queer folk, as the reality is that there are still children getting lost along the way.
Hurtful, ignorant rhetoric from individuals and hateful legislation continue to harm the queer community and strip away civil rights. Many countries still enforce being queer as a federal crime, and religious scripture is used to justify homophobia and transphobia.
As we tell the story of Matthew Shepard and hear from our guest speaker, Ginger Chien from PFLAG Bellevue Eastside, we hope that you will consider ways in which you can take action to make the world a safer and more loving place for folks regardless of their sexual orientation, their gender identity, or gender expression.
If you feel so moved, your program tonight includes instructions for making a donation to PFLAG, which works to create a more caring, just, and affirming world for LGBTQIA and Two-Spirit people and those who love them. Thank you for being here, and thank you for being open to hearing this story.
us in the queer community, in all different marginalized communities, had taken all of these steps backwards. And I felt really lost. I felt like it was hard to look around at people and say, do I really show myself to you? Is there trust here? How do we build that again? And I think goodness knows it's safe to say that that is a sentiment many have echoed after the pandemic. But I say this because when that march happened, that's when it all clicked for me. That even in times where it feels like the world is against us, no, people are still there, the movement hasn't stopped, and we will keep on going forward every day. We will keep marching, even if it is inch by inch, even if we walk 10 inches in a year and then are pushed back 6 feet. We will keep pushing onwards and onwards. When we see hateful legislation, when we see hateful legislation coming out of Florida and the South, when we feel like this country is separated in two and that divide is something that we feel like we could never possibly bridge, no. We keep walking, we keep fighting inch by inch, millimeter by millimeter, if that is all that we have in us that day. So, as we present this song to you that Stephen has gloriously arranged, I want to invite, if you feel called to join in, to dance, to clap, this is a song for everyone. I wrote it with the intention of giving it to the people, so let's march through this together. You know, you lost your way. Can't keep the monsters at bay. The darkness tears at you, pulling you down. You get back up and fight your way out. And you say, ooh, not today, not today. Tell your sons and daughters, sisters and your brothers, stand for one another, fill the world with color. We're here to say we want to live in a different way, so take a hand and share that love each and every day. They'll build walls all while we walk a million miles. We'll keep on marching on. You know you're never alone. The world will build you a home, a place for all of us, a place to be free. Nothing but love for you and me. Ooh, and you say, ooh, here we'll stay, here we'll stay. Tell your sons and daughters, sisters and your brothers, stand for one another, fill the world with color. We're here to say we want to live in a different way, so take a hand and share that love each and every day. They'll build the walls all while we walk a million miles. We'll keep on marching on. Marching on, marching on, we're 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 marching on, marching on, we're marching on, keep on marching on, we're marching on for love. Tell your sons and daughters, sisters and your brothers. Tell your sons and daughters, sisters and your brothers, stand for one another, fill the world with color. We're here to say we want to live in a different way. So take a hand and share that love each and every day. They'll build the walls of wire, walk a million miles, and we'll keep on marching on. And we'll keep on marching on.
I am Pastor Lisa Horst Clark, and my pronouns are she, her, and I am lead pastor of the First Congregational Church of Bellevue. As we are gathering here in this moment, we know all that is coming outside these walls. As we have seen anti-LGBT legislation spreading at unprecedented ways in our country, as we've seen legislation affecting the care available to trans kids in particular, and as we feel the weight and the fear for those caught in the middle of multiple prejudices of racism and trans and homophobia and the rhetoric emerging closer to home than I would often care to imagine. And I feel this in particular as the leader of a Christian church, because I know that there are many who evoke the language of Christianity while fanning the flames of fear and of hatred. And I know that there are those who are with us here today in this space who have experienced that harm as part of your story of church. And I am so sorry. And I know it is a gift not to be taken for granted you're willing to even step through these doors, given that churches have been a source of pain. For the congregations that have been preparing these pieces today, for First Congregational Church Bellevue and University United Church of Christ, both are churches that are open and affirming. And so that means that we affirm that queer folks are made in the image of God. It means for us as churches, we have been blessed by the gifts of those with many gender identities, expressions, and ways of loving. We've been blessed by individuals that reveal God's love and justice by just being who they were made to be. It means that we have been called to the work of love and liberation so that every child can grow knowing their own blessedness and wholeness and giftedness and grow in safety into who they were called to be by their Creator. And so as we stand on this place, forged by the generations of LGBT activists and allies past and those to come, there is a tenderness in this moment. Because I do not believe that sacred space is something that is set apart. It's not that there's some holy ground somewhere that is separate and then we enter. Instead, I believe that sacred space is created when God's beloved draws near. When people come and show brave and vulnerable love. We who gather here make this space sacred. And thank you for bringing your love and courage and grief and hope tonight to make this a sacred space to hold this story tonight. To make this a sacred space to hold all of the stories that are in the midst of our hearts tonight. And so it is my honor to introduce Ginger Chien. Ginger is a transgender woman. Her pronouns are she and her, and she is the chapter president of PFLAG Bellevue Eastside. And we are so honored to have your words of reflection with us tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, what an honor to be with you. I actually prefer to stand a little bit off to one side so that there isn't so much stuff between me and you. Can I move this a little bit? Yeah. That will make me much happier. Can I just use this one? Can I freestyle this? Awesome. All right. You know, I'd like to start my comments today 50 years back, when the world was still in black and white. Some of us remember that. There was a mom named Jean Manford, and she chose to courageously walk in one of the first ever Pride parades, carrying a sign that said, "I love my gay son." That was something that had never been seen before. Because, to be honest, people were too afraid to have even dared do such a thing. And by the end of that parade, she understood the power of her courage to push those boundaries, her own fears, society's walls, because what she saw were young queer adults coming up to her, sobbing and begging her to talk to their parents, to heal their estranged families. She saw parents coming up to her too, saying, "I thought I was the only one. I didn't know there were parents who could have such a beautiful relationship with their queer children." And with that, PFLAG was born, out of a very simple lesson of unconditional love, first and foremost for those closest and dearest to you, and there's no reason why that can't go further and further out into wider circles, into your community. And first and foremost, to love those who are close to you, as opposed to surrendering to the fear that the oppressive forces of society would have you conform to. That was her show of courage that day. And she came to understand that. And those of us in PFLAG, that is our continuing mission, to educate, to advocate, to run our support groups so successful parents can share their wisdom with other parents. And that people like me, a transgender woman who was just looking for a little community, I stumbled into a PFLAG meeting thinking, you know, it's been a long time since I've found any of my tribe on the Eastside. And I walked into a meeting and very quickly realized that, you know, I have a place there. While I'm not the parent of an LGBTQ kid, I am an LGBTQ adult who has survived, who has thrived, who has been successful. And I realized that just being present in that meeting and talking about my success gave the parents hope too, to energize them, that there would be a future for their child, and that it can be a bright future, a really awakened future, and one with hope. So I'm going to come back to the PFLAG story a little bit later, but I want to talk a little bit about belonging and its paradox. Deep down, I've come to learn through my PFLAG work that everybody is looking for a place. I certainly know that in my growing up process, I was in fear of losing everything that I thought I loved. I was afraid of losing my parents because as a little kid, I was asking about the toys and the clothes and the friends that were typical of what girls would ask for. And when I went to school, I was afraid of losing all of my schoolmates because those same questions brought really harsh judgment and real serious exclusion from the kids that I wanted to be friends with. And then as I continued growing, losing my college scholarship, losing my marriage, losing my daughter, losing my career, every step of my life, I was faced with the question of, am I ready to lose it all? Oddly enough, when I came out, those exact same fears struck my parents. The coming out process is not a contained and insular personal one. It spreads throughout families, and I had heard that message through my work in PFLAG, and I understood it because I saw it happen in my own family when I came out. My mother and father struggled with what it would be like to lose their immigrant Chinese community, what it would be like to lose their place in their neighborhood and the respect of their neighbors. They feared losing it all as well. And this is a difficult journey that, as much as we would like, we want to take that together with each other's support. But more often than not, it is done in isolation, not knowing the struggles that the child is enduring, or not knowing the struggle that the parent is enduring at the same time. The paradox of belonging is that in our effort to feel safe, so often we exclude others to create a world that is small and predictable, something that we feel we understand, where people think like us and act like us and dress like us and believe like us. Those of us in the queer community have discovered something different. We've discovered an expansive kind of belonging where all we have to do is recognize the beauty and the courage of what it takes to just be authentic, to show the world that you have a tattoo, or to be frank about your faith, or reveal that you may have a certain ethnic background that people may not have suspected. So many of us are hiding something. And it's my dream that someday we can be in a place where we celebrate all of our differences and we can shed the heavy burden of the oppressive judgments that come from a conformist society. So in the back of my mind, I think about that paradox of belonging all the time. Whenever we exclude, we shrink our world in which we think we belong. And we can choose the opposite. We can be expansive and bring our beauty and see everybody else bringing their beauty and find a way to celebrate it. And it's an uncomfortable way of thinking for some, but that's what I feel here today. That we may all be committed in that mission in one way or another. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about allyship as well. You know, it's a word that gets thrown around a lot. And what I'm going to introduce to you is a concept that there are many kinds of allyship, and I'm going to force a choice on you. I'm going to make you think about where you choose to be on that spectrum. Are you simply going to be, and this is really corny, it's going to involve the letter A 4 times. Are you simply going to be aware and call it good? And I think everyone of faith understands that action is required for change. And merely being aware can be a pretty low bar. Or do you want to be the ally? Someone who posts the Pride Month meme on your social media and call that good? Or reshare a story? It's a little bit better, but it's not a whole lot better. You can also be the advocate, someone who speaks up in the room when the queer person is not in the room, and you speak up when someone cracks a joke or someone hurls an insult, and you say, this is not okay. The advocate is someone who chooses to take risk. And then you can also choose to be the accomplice, which is a play on words. We often think of the accomplice as someone who's doing something criminal. But I think of the accomplice as someone who is the rebel with a cause, someone who wants to change the world, the familiar world that is, push against its structures and create change that is deeply meaningful, to change systems, to change thinking, to change practices for the better. So I will ask you to think about where you are on that allyship scale. Are you merely aware? Are you an occasional helpful ally? Are you someone who is actively advocating and taking risks? Or are you the accomplice, someone who's really out there being that rebel? and creating that change. I'm going to finish up my thoughts today with just a quick story, and I apologize, I have not been watching the clock. This will only take 5 minutes. This is a story that I've told about my personal experiences in a band, a transgender band. This is a story that I've told across the US, and it's even been heard in Europe too, although I've never had the luxury of being flown to Europe to tell this story. That would have made me so happy in so many ways. But this story is about a lot of the ideas that I've already shared, and a few more. So when I was a little kid, one of my favorite TV shows was The Partridge Family. I'm dating myself here. It's a show about a single mom and her kids. They played in a band together. They had all kinds of fun musical adventures. And it was such a neat family. And I wish I could have called that one my home. I also dreamt of someday being Lori. She was the smiling girl behind the keys. But none of this was in the cards for me because I was the only son of a hopeful immigrant family, and I had a role to play. I did really well in school. I got married. I had a daughter, a wonderful daughter, a great career, but everyone's affections were directed at this perfectly crafted and accomplished facade of a straight man that I had created for them, not for me. And I felt very alone and very unseen. I came out late in life, and I ended up seeing a transgender band, and I was absolutely mesmerized. Now, I knew nothing about rock music. I was such a recluse. I'd never even been to a concert before. But I took everything that I had, my childhood skills as a violin player, and I approached this band of transgender musicians, and I said, "Can I join the band?" With violin skills. A rock and roll band. But they said yes. And so then I had to go out and buy a whole bunch of equipment. I taught myself how to play the keys. We practiced for months to put together hours of music so we could play a credible show somewhere. And we started looking for those shows. And it turns out it was in the town of Port Angeles, Washington, which is a pretty rugged coastal town way out on the far corner of the Olympic Peninsula. It's a place most people know as the home of fishermen and loggers. It's the last place you'd ever expect to see a transgender band walking into a bar. But we put on our flamboyant and colorful outfits, and we strutted into that bar with our instruments. The men, they clutched their beers in terror and clung to the walls. The women, they looked us up and down very skeptically, because no one dresses like that in Port Angeles. We walked onto the stage, and we began to play. The 80s music drew the women onto the dance floor, and wherever the women go, the men follow. And we ended up playing out there for over 15 straight years to packed houses. Shattered all of my preconceptions and gave me a lot of hope, too. Right? At these shows, I met this man. He was a self-described redneck, the biggest redneck in town. And at first, he really didn't want to come see us, but then he came to see us over and over, and then he started showing up at every single show. We started talking, and now whenever we see each other, we give each other hugs. And he said he wanted to share a story with me about a buddy of his from school that he had lost contact with long ago. And this buddy had gotten back in touch with him and said that she had transitioned and was now living as a woman and wanted to reconnect with him. And that takes a lot of courage. Sometimes it's easier just to live with the illusion of the friendship that was there than risk losing it all. And much to his credit, because he had come to know us as people through music and through connection and through stories, and not merely as fears and assumptions. He wasn't afraid to meet with her, and they did meet, and they did reconnect. But I had to ask him a question. Knowing who you are and where you came from, you were the biggest redneck in town, and here you are coming to every one of our shows. We talk, we hug. And knowing your friend, who your friend was, and who she has become, which one of you changed more? He thought for a second, and this little smile crept across his face, and he said, me. I've changed more. You know, this thing that we do in the band, it is a risky thing. There are people in places who would have nothing to do with us. We stick out. We can't avoid that risk. But wherever we play, people tell us that they're inspired. And I think it's because we're authentic. We're putting it all out there. We're a little bit bigger than life. And in being so, we lift this suffocating, heavy, wet blanket of conformity off of everybody. And it gives everyone some space underneath to breathe and be themselves. One of my favorite songs that we play is called Major Tom. It's an obscure song about an astronaut who gets lost in space. And even though he's lost in space, it ends on this beautiful repeating chorus at the end. It just goes over and over, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. And I can look out over our audiences. I see young and old and gay and straight, queer and trans, abled and not, people of color. They all choose to come to our show because we're taking that risk to be ourselves, and they get to join us as who they are. And when that chorus hits, everyone's head tips back and their hands reach for the ceiling and they're all singing, I'm coming home. And me, I'm the smiling girl behind the keys. I'm making music and people are singing and dancing with me. And it feels like home. I'm not done quite yet. I dream someday that the acts of love and compassion and the shedding of fear as old stories that were imposed upon us will allow us to create that place where we can all embrace each other and call it home. Thank you.
It is a great privilege and joy for us to be singing for all of you, friends and listeners. We are eager to share with you selected movements from Craig Hella Johnson's concert-length work, Considering Matthew Shepard. Johnson composed this work in response to the death of a 21-year-old gay man whose name was Matthew Shepard. On October 6, 1998, this University of Wyoming student, whom his mother and father called Matt, was kidnapped, beaten, and left to die in what became an infamous act of brutality and one of America's most notorious anti-gay hate crimes.
This work takes a deeply meaningful and transformative journey in telling the story of Matthew Shepard's death and a subsequent work for healing, justice, and love which have taken place in the years since his death. Although we cannot sing the complete work for you in the context of this performance, we want to share with you this choral suite with accounts from Matt's mother and father, and even words from Matt's own journal. First, we sing about Matt, the ordinary boy, not so different from you or me. Then we sing about the sharing of the stories of our lives, and we sing an invitation to be open to hearing a story that may be difficult to hear. But if we are willing to listen and to stay open, we may also have the potential to shift our perspectives and open our hearts.
Let's talk about Matt.
Born in December in Casper, Wyoming. To a father and a mother. Then came a younger brother, Logan. His name was Matthew in Shepard. And one day his name came to be known around the world. But as his mother said, you knew him as Matthew. To us, he was Matt. He was my son, my firstborn and more. He was my friend, my confidant, my constant reminder of how good life can be and how hurtful. Matt's laugh is wonderful, hugs his stories. Matt writes about himself in a notebook.
I am funny, sometimes forgetful, and messy, and lazy. I am not a lazy person, though. I am giving, and understanding, and formal and polite. I am sensitive, I am honest, I am sincere, and I am not a pest. I am my own person, I am warm. I want my life to be happy, and I want to be clear about things. I want to feel good. I love Wyoming. I love Wyoming very much. I love theater, I love good friends, I love succeeding, I love pasta, I love jogging and walking and feeling good. And I love to be on stage.
We tell each other stories so that we will remember. Try and find the meaning in the living of our days. Always telling stories, waiting to remember where and whom we came to remember one that breaks the heart of us all. Still we tell the story, we're listening and confessing what we have forgotten in the story of our song. We tell each other stories so that we can remember. Try and find the meaning.
Tuesday night, Matthew attended a meeting of the University of Wyoming's Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Association. Then he joined others for coffee at the College Inn. Around 10:30, he went to the Fireside Bar, where he later met Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson. Near midnight, they drove him to a remote area, tied him to a split-rail fence, beat him horribly, and left him to die in the cold of night.
The next morning, Matthew was found by a cyclist, a fellow student, who at first thought he was a scarecrow. After several days in a coma and on life support, Matthew Shepard died on Monday, October 12th at 12:53 a.m. At the funeral, which took place on Friday, October 16th, at St. Mark's Episcopal Church in Casper, Fred Phelps and the Westboro Baptist Church protested outside.
What have you done? Hark, thy brother's blood cries to me from the ground.
By this candle led to the flame, call to remember, enter the flame.
All our flames now swaying and free, all our hearts now moving as one, every living spirit turned toward peace, all our tender hopes awake.
Led to the flame, call to remember, enter the flame.
Fire, fire, How do we keep these flames in our hands? How do we guard these fears in our hearts? How long to hold these griefs in our songs? Remembering anger, weave it with hope. Remembering exile, braid it with praise. Longing past horror, longing past dread. Dreaming of healing past all our pain. In each moment the fire rages. It will burn away 100 veils.
Aaron McKinney and Russell Henderson were arrested shortly after the attack and were charged with murder, kidnapping, and aggravated robbery. The first of 2 trials began on October 26, 1999. Both were convicted of the murder and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences.
think of all the times the world was ours for dreaming, when I think of all the times the earth seemed like our home, every heart alive with its own longing, every future we could ever hope to hold, all the times our laughter rang in summer, all the times the rivers sang our tune. Was there already sadness in the sunlight? Some stormy story waiting to be told? Where, oh, where has the innocence gone? Where, oh, where has it gone? Rains rolling down, wash away my memory. Where, oh, where has it gone? When I think of all the joys, the wonders we remember, all the treasures we believed we'd never, ever lose. Too many days gone by without their meaning. Too many darkened hours without their peace. Where, oh, where has the innocence gone? Where, oh, where has it gone? Vows we once swore, now it's just this letting go. Where, oh, where has it gone? Where, oh, where has the innocence gone? Where, oh, where has it gone? Rains rolling down, wash away my memory. Where, oh, where has it gone?
Throughout the length of the piece, we hear not only the story of Matt, but also hear an invitation to consider whether we believe it is possible to envision a world in which love, equality, and freedom are the dominant aspects of the culture. The words from a song beckon us to meet at the fence as a place of beginnings.
There's a balm in the silence, like an understanding air, where the old fence ends and the horizon begins. We've been walking through the darkness on this long, hard climb, carried ancestral sorrow for too long a time. Will you lay down your burden? Lay it down, come with me. It will never be forgotten, held in love so tenderly. Meet me here, won't you meet me here, where the old fence ends and the horizon begins. There's a joy in the singing, like an understanding air, where the old fence ends and the horizon begins. Then we'll come to the mountain, we'll go round it to see that great circle of dancing, and we'll dance endlessly. And we'll dance with all the children who get lost along the way. We will love each other, coming home this glorious day. We are home in the mountain, and will gently understand that we've been friends forever, that we've never been alone. We'll sing on through any darkness, and our song will be our side. We can learn to offer praise again. Coming home to the light.
As this final movement expresses, the vision for a world in which love is the reverberating force is only possible if it includes all of us. No exceptions. All of us.
what could be the song when